So hopefully I can finish this before I go to bed. So this is still the Daily KOS. We all knew about the trafficking. This is talking about Casablancas, who got in trouble, and the woman who took over the main part of his modeling agency, the New Faces division of Elite, was Trudy Tapscott, and she was covering for him. Like, she said, my answer is that no one ever did anything they didn't want to, she stated, and I'm amazed at how these girls act in certain situations. They knew more about making passes at men than I ever knew. Bullshit. Over time, Donald Trump would emerge from the ruins of his empire with a new approach to business, a new source of income. In 1996, he bought the rights to the Miss Universe franchise and became the central figure in the running of these pageants. And in 1999, he started a modeling agency, T Models, later changed to Trump Model Management. The correlation of this interest is quite clear for a man awkward around women but dependent on his public image saying otherwise. A stable of women under his employ was a way to boost his image, and even better, he was able to lock all of these women into non-disclosure agreements, ensuring that his behavior with them had little chance of becoming public knowledge. It also, 28 of them said otherwise. So all the other ones were under NDAs. Can you imagine how many women there were that he assaulted? It also appeared to have served as a useful tool regarding his business transactions, which in the aftermath of his bankruptcy were increasingly dependent on some less than savory characters. How he did this and the breadth of his activity will be explored in the next installment. But for the time being, there is one final aspect of this story that is breathtaking and speaks more to the character of Donald Trump than anything else. Ivanka. 14 years old, the suddenly ravishing mini babe who seems like one of those kids from soap operas, 4 years old one day and 19 the next, is starting to model. Donald is particularly enthusiastic. Oh my God, you should see this picture. Fuck. I haven't seen this picture before. Oh no. Don't worry, I'm gonna post it here. Ah, this is a terrible picture. 7 years had passed since John Casablancas had appeared on the cover of New York Magazine, declaring his love for underage girls, and Donald and Ivana had made a decision. Their daughter Ivanka would become a model. Despite a widespread belief that she was too young, too naive, and wasn't quite aesthetically suited for the industry, Ivanka Trump was nonetheless able to get signed to a major agency. At the tender age of 13, she signed on with the New Look department of Elite Model Management, under the tutelage of none other than John Casablancas. It seems that Monica Pillard, the president of Elite, had been eyeing Ivanka since she spotted her on her father's lap 4 years ago, when Mr. Trump was a judge of a new talent contest for the agency. Mr. Trump and Elite have a long-standing informal relationship. Miss Pillard served as a judge in the Miss Universe pageant, which is jointly owned by Mr. Trump and CBS, as is the Miss Teen USA pageant. John Casablancas, Elite's founder, is a friend of Mr. Trump's, and Elite held events at Trump Tower in Manhattan. Yes, Donald Trump decided to entrust his daughter to this man. Yes, Casablancas still had his job. He would weather charges of tax evasion, a class action lawsuit, but eventually his past caught up with him. In 2002, he was sued by a former model who alleged that Casablancas had raped her when she was 15 and then forced her to get an abortion. The lawsuit was settled for an undisclosed amount, and in 2003, Elite Model Management officially declared bankruptcy. Despite the fact that Ivanka largely flopped as a model, Donald Trump would continue to brag about her physical beauty, physique, and ostensibly prolific modeling career. He would also go on to unceremoniously dump Marla Maples, his long-suffering mistress, having become his reluctant second bride, and shut her down with legal arrangements that both forbade her from saying a negative word about him in public for all time and ensured she got next to nothing in spousal child support. Maples agreed to this despite the fact that she had already raised their daughter, Tiffany, almost entirely on her own. In fact, until his presidential run, Trump had not shown a modicum of fatherly interest in her life, aside from the bizarre speculation, when she was merely a baby, about her future breast size and compliments of her 1-year-old legs on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. I remember that. Over a decade later, in one of his few public acknowledgments of her existence, he would smirk as he admitted to Howard Stern that he had urged Marla to abort her. In the meantime, Elite and Ford collapsed under the weight of their scandals, creating a vacuum of talent to cash in on. A cast of shadowy characters and playboys were drawn in, eager to capitalize on the power, social status, and potential fortune that could be found in the business of beautiful girls. As Ford lost her grip on power, for better or worse, so did the last vestiges of an honor code within the modeling world. While the one that existed was without teeth, it still marked a change. During this time, the supermodel era also came to an end. No model since has ever dared to suggest that there was a price tag attached to their presence. Modesty, in terms of value and talent, became synonymous with greed and hubris. The fact that models, even supermodels, never gained the riches that were born of their starved bodies and faces didn't matter. The fact that the largest spoils went to the very men who were caught on hidden camera laughing about raping underage girls didn't matter. The industry was, like so many others, an unregulated Wild West. And into this fray came numerous playboys and would-be kings. Jean-Luc Brunel, the unwitting star of the BBC undercover investigation, started MC2. Claude Haddad, his co-star, started DNA. Paolo Zampoli, who we will talk about in the next installment, the one that brought Melania over here, started ID. Michelle Adam Lisowski started Fashion TV, and Donald J. Trump started Trump Model Management. All of these individuals and companies are, as it turns out, inextricably linked in ways that leave little doubt of the nature of their business. The fashion industry, as exploitative and morally ambiguous as it is on its very surface, is in fact merely the rock that covers an ecosystem of underground creatures beneath. This ecosystem will be explored and laid bare in my next post. This is a story that must be told in layers and parts. It involves oligarchs and diplomats, tax evasion and trafficking of drugs, weapons, and human beings. But for now, it is important to explore the surface because it is the most easily understood, provable, and in many ways it's the most telling when it comes to the character of the man who wants to be president. And there are a myriad of important questions to ask knowing the facts thus far. What kind of man seeks out, pursues friendship and business partnerships with a man who is unabashed in his predilection of underage girls, who openly admits he prefers them young because they are easily manipulated? John Casablancas was girl crazy and proud of it. His reputation was legendary. Imagine for one moment that John Casablancas was doing this type of thing with boys of the same age. Imagine he was inviting young teenagers to his private office, having them stripped down to near complete nudity, inspecting their bodies, talking about how he thought they were sexy, sending them off to Europe to get them broken in, and falling in love with them. The ages of the girls he had preyed upon is not all that far off from the ages of the boys that Jerry Sandusky abused. And we all readily acknowledge that's wrong. Joe Paterno was rightfully condemned for turning a blind eye to what was happening. But when it was 14-year-old girls, why does anyone, including Trump, who continued to do business with him, get a pass? And why is this the first time, to my knowledge, that Trump's association with John Casablancas has even been questioned in the public sphere? And for that matter, what kind of man throws his 14-year-old daughter into the den of wolves? Plausible deniability isn't going to work on this one. Donald Trump knew about the state of the industry. He knew that it was a cesspool of drug abuse and sexual exploitation. Why would he sign his underage daughter with, of all people, John Casablancas? Anyone who is tangentially connected to the modeling industry was well aware of the scandals that plagued him. His relationship with Stephanie Seymour, his unrelenting desire for young girls, and furthermore, they knew that Casablancas' attitude was far from an outlier, that in fact the industry was rife with people exactly like him, and hopelessly corrupted by their influence. This was not obscure knowledge. It was a subject of national broadcast. It was an industry-wide embarrassment. It was front-page story. Donald Trump knew the reputation of elite, he knew the reputation of the industry, and he knew that it was ripe hunting ground for young, impressionable girls. He knew the drugs were rampant and frequently pushed on models as they were hired under the guise of entertainment, of guests. In fact, he admitted as much when he was asked about it in this New York Times interview. This is an interesting case, he said over his speakerphone, which was not on a boat, but rather in his office. I am only modestly in favor of this because I understand that the life is a very fast life, and at that age is always a risky proposition. So what did Trump do? Did he recoil in horror? Did he disavow any further dealings with these people? No. If you as a parent knew about all of this in the fashion industry, modeling in particular, what would you do if your child, 13 at the time, announced that she wanted to become a model? By all accounts, it does not appear that Ivanka was even the driving force behind the decision to start modeling. In fact, old profiles of Trump, it's abundantly clear that both he and Ivana were excited and invigorated by the prospect of their little girl being on the catwalk and in the pages of Vogue. They promoted her tirelessly, especially Donald. He bragged to anyone who would listen about how beautiful she was, often remarking on her body. He sought affirmation from others when he asked if they, including a judge for Miss USA and others, thought his daughter was hot. Oh, fuck, I'm not done. One more.